Hello and welcome to the very first episode of the Atlas Sports Podcast. My name's Thomas. We got Chandler, and today we're going to be talking about the Heat and Celtics Eastern Conference Final Series, what both teams need to do to close out the series as we head into a Game 6 in Miami, and our prediction for how the series is going to end. So I'll go ahead and start off. What a crazy series it's been so far. All Heat for the first three games and all Celtics the last two. And the question remains is which version of which team is going to come out, for the final two games or potential final game tomorrow night. Um, my keys for both teams. The Jays have got to become the consistent superstars that we know they can be and have shown a little bit in the playoffs. Although they did fall off early in the first few games, they did show up a little bit last night to start the game. Obviously, they weren't really playing as much to close out the game because they're up a ton. But if they could go into Miami with that same mindset that they had when they're down against Philly, that is going to be huge for them. And especially in that game 6, when Jason didn't have the greatest game, Jalen stepped up big time, and that was so huge for them. And I think the biggest fault for the Celtics this series has been Jalen Brown only averaging 17 points per game. I think the Celtics are way worse when Jalen Brown is not playing to his potential rather than when Jason is playing to his potential. Because when Jalen is not playing to his potential, the glue for the whole team is just missing. Because all of a sudden it's Jason trying to cover for him, and the Miami Heat know that he's going to be the guy. Whereas Jalen is athletic enough and has enough of the playmaking ability to work around that, in my opinion. As far as the Heat's perspective, they got to hope that Gabe Vincent can come back ASAP. I mean, it was pretty clear that they were lacking some production last night from the very first early games when he put on 25 points per night to start the series. His production has been magnificent for them, almost as good as Bam Adebayo, and they are really suffering from a non-healthy roster, in my eyes. And so, if they don't get him back, I have some serious worries for him. However, if I'm the Boston Celtics, I have proved to myself that I can go into Miami and win. And if I could take that same mentality, I'm going to Miami and winning. And when I come back to Boston, you can guarantee that I'm closing out the series with the Jays. And that's where I think the series is kind of headed. However, I do think the Heat have a really great shot of winning next game.
Yeah, I think my big takeaway from last night's game was the Celtics are in it. Like, this is a realistic possibility to make history and be down from 3-0 and come back and win. They have the superstar talent in Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Have they maybe not showed up in a couple games? Yes. But they are shooting like 20 and 28% from three, and they're back in the series. So they don't have to be on their absolute A game to win this series. Now, you would love for them to because their star power will outshine the one man role of Jimmy Butler if they're playing at their best. But I think the Boston Celtics, it comes down to their role players. Last night, Marcus Smart and Derek White combined for 45 points as role players. That is super key. Marcus Smart shooting 40% from three. Derek White shooting 58% from three. They got to keep that up. I think it comes to they just have to outperform the Heat's role players because, yes, Jimmy Butler's cold blooded, but that's only in like the closing moments. We've seen last night, I think he was like 2 for 10. Like, he didn't have the best game. He had like 14 points. So I think if these Boston Celtic role players, as in like Marcus Smart, Derek White, Grant Williams, even like an Al Horford, if they can shoot lights out or at least just even better than the Heat, I think they have a real shot of winning this all. For the Heat, I think also it comes down to the role players. They were missing Caleb Martin last night, and you could obviously tell it. They just didn't seem like they had enough production, like you said, Thomas. But it comes down to all the role players. I mean, Caleb Martin shooting 59% from three, or 45% from three. Gabe Vincent 50%, Duncan Robinson 45. Those are really high, but they got to keep that up if they want to win this series. They don't have the overwhelming superstar talent. They have Jimmy Butler, but like other than that, like Bam is great and all, but he ain't gonna give you 30 in a night. So it comes down to Caleb Martin, Gabe Vincent, Duncan Robinson, Max Strus, Kyle Lowry. They gotta produce for you. Even the Cody Zeller minutes off the bench can be super important. Uh, I just think their role players have to outshine uh, the Boston Celtics for them to even have a shot to win another game because the Celtics are firing on all cylinders and they're hot. All they got to do is win one in Miami, and it's home court advantage for Game 7. And I think the statistics is there's out of all the 3-0 deficits, only 3 teams have forced a Game 7. I think if the Celtics do it, they take it.
They do. And I think you're kind of hitting on a point that we all kind of know instinctively, and especially going into the series. The Celtics are a better team. And I kind of looked like a clown for saying that even down 3-0, but it's finally showing now. I mean, when you have even Grant Williams averaging 10 points per game in the series, Robert Williams averaging 9, Alice struggling but still averaging 7. I mean, the Celtics role players have finally been showing the production 5 games in. And the key to that is going to be how much longer can this continue and which version of the Celtics team are we going to see? Because when the Celtics team is firing on all cylinders, it's clear why they were the number 2 seed going into this playoffs and why they were the first team to win 40 games without getting 20 losses. It's clear why Jason Tatum was the All-Star MVP and why they looked so coherent all year long, even with the first-year head coach.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
so, yeah,
yeah, you have to realize that even like it was like not until 3/4 way through the season where the Bucks overtook the Celtics. Like everyone was like the Celtics are unbeatable. Like they were winning all the big games. They were, I think, even against Milwaukee, they were like early in the season they had the higher foot on them when they played head to head. They just been the better team. I mean, I think the top 3 seeds in the East had better records than anyone in the West. So I think we through this playoff, through the crapshoot of the East, we kind of overlooked that this is really a 2 seed versus a 7 seed. And if anyone is going to come back from that, it's going to be a 2 seed down to a 7 seed. And they
yeah,
have the star power. And I don't think everything needs to go right for Boston to win. I think everything needs to go right for Miami to win. Like you said, their team is just a far less talented. Yes, they've been firing all cylinders, but they didn't do this in the regular season like Miami Heat didn't. So it's kind of an anomaly that they're shooting this well. And they could keep it up, but I even think if they keep this up, if Boston Celtics plays at the level that they know they are, they're going to just win.
absolutely. And if you look at the Heat's averages over the first 3 games and their role players that were really going off, like the Vincent, the Martin, the Lowrys, if you were to look at just their 3-point percentage shooting alone, all those guys had at least 12 points higher, or 12 percentage points higher in those 3 games than they did in the regular season. And the longer that these games go on, the more that you're going to regress to the mean, right? So over time, it favors the Celtics how these games keep continuing, because you're more likely to see that the Miami Heat are going to regress and the Celtics are going to go back to their original form, which is the superior team that they've shown all season long.
Yeah, and like it or not, the East is just a way different outlook than it was a couple years ago. I mean, when LeBron was winning everything, like you never would have thought an 8 seed could have went on like a run or a 7 seed. But Miami being an 8 seed, they just caught a hot streak and they're hot. They got kind of lucky. I mean, they did take them only in 5 games, but Giannis did get a little injured, so that could have maybe shaped it up. They got the Knicks. Nothing against the Knicks. They just weren't. The Knicks just aren't ready to go to the conference finals. They just aren't. Miami Heat has been there before. They've done it. They know what to do. The Knicks just weren't ready, and they didn't play the more talented Cavs because the Knicks beat them. So I not that I want to say this run is a fluke, because I give all credit to Miami Heat, the role players, and Jimmy Butler, but I do think that Miami's way and above more talented and honestly shouldn't have even been down 3-0 at the first place. And I think a lot of that is on Missoula's hands. But I think he's shown that he's made good adjustments. He probably has what's his name in his ear? Their owner. Brad. Yeah, they have him in his ear. So he's probably helping him out. And I know, like we've said before, he's a rookie coach who got thrown in at the last second. He's never been to the playoffs as a head coach. He's going to make mistakes. And that's why I know you've said this, but I think this game also saved his job.
Absolutely. And I think that's kind of a good segue into our next topic where do you think the series is going to go from here? And can the Celtics actually pull off for the very first time an 0-3 deficit in the Eastern Conference Finals?
Yeah, so I think this next game is the game 7. I think whoever takes this game, obviously if Heat win it, it's over. But I think if it goes back to Boston with those fans, that atmosphere playing in the Garden, I don't I don't know if Jimmy Butler and the Heat can do it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and also like it would be devastating for the Heat, but I root for history. Like it would be so awesome to see the first ever 3-0 comeback, and then it would also open up a huge segue into whenever a team's down 3-0, they're not out of this. They actually have a shot. They're like, oh, the Celtics, they did it last year. We have a shot. So it might show some more fight in people in the future if the Celtics come back and actually make history.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, you could just look to Twitter, and after the 0-3 deficit, like there were so many accounts that were saying like, "Thank you, Celtics fans." Like like the post teams usually put out where it's like the season is over, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely next game is the game 7. I mean, all the momentum in the world is riding on the Celtics right now, and if the Heat don't figure it out next game, I think that game 7 in Boston is going to be exactly like game 7 against Philly,
Yep.
where the fans are going crazy. It's going to get all the players hyped. The players are going to hit everything. Any little run by the Celtics is going to feel like a monumental run to the opposing team, as it was to the 76ers. And before you know it, it's the third quarter and they're down by 20, 25. And the look on their faces is, I can't believe we just blew that. Like, if the Heat do not win next game, I can't stress how detrimental that is going to be for a game 7 at Boston.
Yeah, and I think we've seen through the years Boston fans, it's either we love you to death or let's ship you, let's trade you, let's fire you. Like I
Mm-hmm.
think the Celtics fans are so like just bipolar in the way they think, but in this case that is actually a great thing because if they win next game, they're on a 3-0 run and the Celtics fans you can't beat them if they're on their highs. So I I think going into that, I would love to sit in the Garden during that game. I bet it'd be electric.
Oh, yeah. I bet there's going to be a lot of prominent Celtics fans that are going to be there.
Yeah.
And Boston fans just do it differently. I mean, we've seen in 2 other sports the greatest comeback in their playoff history happen with the Boston team. And I can only imagine that they want to add one more to the Celtics being down 0-3. And I think they're going to play lights out for it. But how do you think the series is going to end up if you had to predict?
I think Celtics in 7. I think history is making.
You
What about you?
think so?
Yeah, I do.
I so badly want to take Celtics in 7. Something tells me that Spoelstra is going to figure it out at home.
That's fair. That's fair.
Okay.
I have a question for you. Who do you think is the better matchup for the Nuggets?
I think the Celtics are the better matchup. And I think, as we were saying a little bit earlier, the Celtics are proving to be the better team right now. And if we think the Celtics are the better team against the Heat and the Nuggets are the best team in the NBA, I think the Nuggets are just going to be that much better than the Heat. Like, I don't want to ever doubt Jimmy Butler in the playoffs, but if the finals come down to Nuggets Heat, like, I would almost be tempted to pick Nuggets in 5.
Yeah.
Like, I just think they're just going to be that much better than the Heat.
Well, and I think one thing you have to take into account that I would love to see is yes, the Nuggets swept and they have a huge break now, but if the
Mhm.
Celtics win, they are on the probably biggest hot streak in NBA history. They
Yeah,
were down 0-3, came back. They would ride that momentum. I honestly think they'd take game 1 and 2 home. Those fans would go crazy. I just think they would take it.
definitely. Well, and you look at a potential finals matchup like that, it's not like the Nuggets were walking out of Los Angeles thinking, yeah, we just beat LeBron and AD by 25. We got this. We're that team. They were barely winning all 4 of those games. Like that was a pendulum swift. It could have gone anyway. And the Nuggets just happened to win all 4, and kudos to them. But they don't really have like the fire that the Celtics have if they were to go out and win in 7 games.
Yeah, I've seen people compare the Nuggets Lakers series to the last year, I think it was last year, Celtics and Nets series where like the Celtics did sweep the Nets, but like every game was like a couple points and a little flip and it could have went the other way, but like the Celtics got the right end of every game and so did the Nuggets.
Definitely. That's why we call it a game of runs.
Yeah. Okay, so for the Celtics, what do you think is like for the Celtics and Heat, what do you think is like one key thing they need to do in game 6 to secure a win?
For the Heat's perspective, they have got to try to play, I think, the passing and assist first version that they played, especially in games 1 and 2, but also in game 3, where it seemed like their offense was like vintage San Antonio Spurs. I mean, it was ball movement like crazy, and that allowed guys to get so many open looks, open shots. That's why you saw those Vincent Martin 3 pointers and allowed Jimmy to do his thing in the fourth quarter. So that's why I think the Heat really need to try to get back in game 6. And for Boston, you've got to hope that your best players show their best game because, I mean, right now, Jaylen Brown is averaging 19 in this series. Tatum is averaging 26, which I feel like is a quiet 26. No one's really talking about it, but you need them to probably get at least 50 together. I would say at least 50. You hope for like 60, but I think if they were to get at least 50, that just opens the door for all the other role players to come show up. I mean, I know we kind of joke about Grant Williams and how he poked the bear, but it allows for Grant Williams to get his 8 or 10. It allows for Al Horford to get his 6 or 8. It allows for Robert Williams to get his probably 12 and 3 blocks or whatever. And I think that's just the biggest key. For the Celtics, you need your best players to play the best basketball, and that's how that team flourishes. And for the Heat, you need everyone to be on their, roles, essentially. And I think if either team can do that better than the other, I think that team is going to take game 6.
Yeah, to jump on your comment about poking the bear, uh Marcus Smart and Grant Williams, they are very loud players, and I think that can be pretty toxic when you're losing, but when you're winning, it is the best thing ever. I mean, I can guarantee you, I'm not in there, so I don't know, but I guarantee you Marcus Smart is in that locker room, hyping all the guys up. They're all listening to him. He kind of owns the team, like emotionally. So I think having players like those now that you're on a run is like so helpful. Like we compare it to like Dylan Brooks, where like they were kind of getting their butts smacked, and him poking the bear wasn't good because they weren't winning. But when you poke the bear and you win, that just gets the team to rally behind you. And when you have like Miami Heat or not Miami, the Boston Celtics are relatively young. At least their stars. You have Tatum 24, like or 25, and Jalen 26. Like they're young guys still. And when you have someone like Marcus Smart who might not be a veteran in this league, but he's 28. He feels like he's been around for even longer. They will listen to him and they will ride off the wave of that energy, which I love. But
Absolutely.
I personally think the biggest thing that both teams need to do is I feel like in this series when any team has started off hot, they've won. Last night, Boston Celtics got up like 15-20 pretty early on. Heat never recovered. Game, I think it was 3, the Heat won. They got up by 20 early on. Celtics just never recovered. I think the big thing is if a team can, they need to get off hot.
Definitely. I mean, the Celtics led from the tip off last night.
Yeah.
And the Celtics also benched their entire starting lineup going to the fourth quarter in game 3, which is crazy to just like wave the white flag down 3-0. But that's kind of where we are. And that's why I think whoever can play to their advantage early is going to take game 6, aka the game 7, because I don't want to say it's a foregone conclusion the Celtics would win game 7, but if the Eastern Conference Finals goes to 7 games, the Boston Celtics will win in 7 games. I have no doubt that that would happen.
Yeah, and I know I don't know what they have with or against Celtics, but they like to ESPN likes to like meat ride the Celtics with the analytics like percentages, and like I remember like Heat were down or Celtics were down 3-0 and they still had Celtics had like a 50% chance of winning, but
Yeah.
I really do think if there's a game 7 in Boston, I would give the Celtics like an 80% chance of winning it. Like there could be a possibility where oh, Caleb Martin gave Vincent shoot 60% and have 30 points, but I think more realities there would be more Celtics win than Heat win by a large amount.
Absolutely. So we will see if the Boston Celtics can pull off this miraculous comeback tomorrow night, Game 6. And if they do, we will have an amazing Game 7 Monday night. And we will get back right after the series is over. But I just want to say thank you to everybody who tuned in to this very first podcast episode. This was a ton of fun and something brand new for both of us. And I hope you guys stick around. We're going to have a ton more coming at you guys. And we'll catch you guys the next one. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Awesome. Go follow the socials.
Yes, sir. Go follow them.